Welcome back, listeners. I'm excited to have you here today. I have a special guest. Her name is Judy Kane. Now, Judy is the owner and operator of Aligned Consciousness, where she helps entrepreneurs who may be stuck in their thinking or have some sort of limiting belief that is playing out in their lives subconsciously. And we know that our thoughts control a lot of how our life plays out. And so if we're thinking something that's very limiting, maybe, I can't do this by myself or I'm not good enough. Those subconscious things and thoughts play out in our lives and in our business especially. And so we're going to be diving into the world of thoughts, beliefs, actions, patterns today with Judy. And so Judy, tell me a little bit about how you ended up in this because you have a background in IT and this is a humongous transition that do something completely new. So tell me a little bit about like your life before in corporate and then like how you got here and how you help people.
Sure. Happy to. I got here because I saw the process that I use work. I saw it. Former husband had an ache somewhere, and a friend knew this process and offered to help. And in 5 minutes, the pain was gone. It didn't come back. And I could see it was something that I could learn to do. It appealed to my IT brain. It didn't require you to interpret messages or physically move energy or do any of those things. It's a very straightforward process. So I was impressed with it and had to learn more. I didn't expect to make it a business. I wanted to learn it just for myself and people I knew. But after I learned it in 2011, after 3 years, it was too good to not share with more people. So that was when I started the business. It's as I reflect on the journey, I mean, it seems improbable from IT management in a large corporation to working with beliefs and such, but it's really not. People come in, they've got a system that isn't giving them the results they want. So we look at what changes are needed to get the results they want. So it's very similar in concept.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I've seen this play out in my own life and in my own business multiple times. And so tell me a little bit about like kind of how somebody knows that they've got a limiting belief. What would the symptoms, let's say, be?
Right. I always advise people to look for the patterns, right? But generally speaking, if you're doing everything you know to get a certain result and it's not happening, then typically there are subconscious beliefs in there blocking you from that goal some way or somehow. So it could show up as extreme frustration because you just don't know what else to do. It can be emotions like you just feel really anxious when you think about doing certain things or you avoid them altogether. You find yourself in patterns of relationships that don't serve you well. And each time you go, well, I'm never going to do that again. And yet the next one looks very similar somehow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or you realize I might have a type, you know?
You- Yeah. Well, it's not a good one.
No, no. You're like, how do I change this? Right.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and relationships, oh my goodness, like relationships, that's a big one. And I feel like these patterns, have you noticed that they kind of overlap into relationships, business, and like how we, work with money and like all the things in our lifestyle, they're all, intertwined because how you show up for one thing, kind of how you show up for everything, right?
Absolutely. Oh, and it's because we get these beliefs early on. We come in, and for the first 7 years, we're little sponges, just absorbing all the rules of engagement wherever we landed. And all of those beliefs that we collect are how we populate our subconscious, and it's how we interpret the world, basically. It's what we think of events, other people, ourselves, what's safe, what isn't. And it controls about 95% of our behavior. It's huge. It's our default system. So unless you're focusing on doing something very specific, everything else is based on those subconscious beliefs.
Absolutely. Now, is there a way for people to identify these very simply or yeah. You're saying yeah.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes they are so not what the person expected to be in there.
Yeah. Like it yeah. Give me an example. Like
Oh, well, a lot of people come to me with to originally for concerns about how well their business is going. And I have found that almost everybody I've stopped doing testing this specifically, but for a while out, for like 2 or 3 years, I was doing an experiment to see how many people had a subconscious belief about this particular thing. And almost everybody had a subconscious belief that it was not okay to have more money than you need.
hmm.
So your subconscious is doing an excellent job keeping you from having an abundant lifestyle because there's something about that. Now you could grow up thinking you have to work really hard for it, or you don't want to be like those people that have too much and you don't like how they are, or it's the root of all evil, or there's no telling what belief you pick up. The bottom line was the subconscious was thinking it's not okay to have more than you need. So
Damn.
yeah.
That creates a big problem, right?
Does, right? If you make more, then something's gonna come along to make it go away.
Mhm.
It's like all sorts of messaging. Sometimes it's not even said in a household, it's just modeled, right?
Wow. And so, like, may they notice that they're, having these, like, roadblocks, like, every time I get to this point, now all of a sudden, this, and this happens, or, like, on the go. Like, I'm thinking of somebody who told me, like, they have a hard time finishing things. And so yes, and so they'll get to a certain point, almost the end, almost the finish line, and then all of a sudden give up. And so there was a subconscious pattern that was playing in there.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and typically with the self-sabotage, that's a fear of success. So it might be the money thing, it could be fear of being seen or heard, could be that your brain connects success with having to work 24/7.
Mm, interesting. So
Yeah,
interesting.
all sorts of
Right? Yeah. We all get in our own way. So often,
I
right?
do, and there's a reason to that. You could believe me. So sometimes there's a scarcity belief around time, right? And that's a way of validating that belief that you run out of time because your brain looks for ways to verify the beliefs that you got. So you might not get the important stuff done at the end of the day, but it's not because you didn't have enough time. It's because you filled it with other stuff to make it true that you don't have enough.
Right? Yeah. And I do hear that one quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like, there's just not enough time in the day or, yeah, they say stuff like that, yeah. It's very interesting. And so, like, I'm a firm believer in, choose your words wisely, right?
Yeah.
Because our words they're a product of our thoughts, right? And so, yeah, we could easily be creating with our words. A lot of times we choose to destroy with our words. And so, like it says in the Bible, right? And so, like, what it is that you do, you come in and tell me kind of like the process. You help people overcome these limiting beliefs.
I do. And the first part of the conversation is what's going on and what would you rather be experiencing?
Wow.
And interestingly enough, many people don't know what they want. They know what they're trying to avoid, but they don't really know what they want. So sometimes that takes a little conversation. Other times people know exactly it just varies on how clear they are, what they really want to be experiencing. And once we get to that, then we identify what beliefs are keeping them from that.
And so, your process that you use, you help them overcome this very quickly.
Yes. You
Yeah.
can usually change any one belief in less than 5 minutes.
Wow.
So the process itself is very fast.
Yeah.
About you can have multiple beliefs contributing to a situation. So I don't want people to think and sometimes it can be just one belief, but I don't
Yeah.
want it to hear this and think 5 minutes and the whole situation is turned around. Boom. I've seen that with phobias, but some other things are more complex.
A little
So
deeper.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, in talking about like this type of support and help and coaching that you do inside of business, you work alongside with business coaches. Tell me more
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, because I don't do behavior, strategy, tools, accountability. any of those really important things that coaches, that's what they do, right? But sometimes, frequently actually, coaches have clients that have subconscious beliefs that are not supporting the goal of the program. And that's where I can come in and be supportive. I can help change the beliefs that are causing the blocks so that the client can go back and get the most out of those coaching programs.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's so profound because once that's kind of out of the way, those limiting beliefs stop playing out, and then they can reach those goals that they're wanting to reach, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what is something like tell me like one of your most favorite, transitional transformational stories that you have?
So I worked with a guy who had just left corporate and started up several small, several of his own entrepreneur types of businesses. And none of them were taking off. And he'd been trying it long enough that he was really seriously considering going back to corporate.
Oh, wow.
He was like, I don't know what else to do. They're just not moving along. I get leads and then nothing happens. So he was just like stuck in this maze and frustrated and concerned. He had a family and needed an income like most of us do. And it turned out that he had a subconscious belief for a business to be sound, it needed to grow really slowly.
Mm,
For a sound foundation and get that nice slow growth so that you can, and so we changed that. You could have a successful business and have it grow, quickly. And he had several really good opportunities within 2 weeks.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. It was amazing how fast it happened once he changed that belief. I think there might have been a couple others, but there weren't many. We only had 1 session.
Oh, wow. And so typically how many sessions do you normally have with somebody?
I can, other than phobias. Now, I've never had a phobia client take a full session. We'll get rid of the phobia, and then it's like, "So what else do you wanna change? We got time."
Oh,
Yeah. So, generally speaking, when people ask that, I have no idea how many beliefs are creating the situation, so I
yeah.
don't know. It could be 1, it could be 3, but it's not a long-term relationship for the same issue. Now,
Mm,
I have people who come, I've got some programs that are around a whole idea that it might be, 6 or 7 sessions.
mm.
I've got a monthly thing where people just come in, they put stuff on their Judy list, and they just come in every week, every month, and we get rid of whatever has popped up that seems to be getting in the way. But I don't have like 6 months of same thing for the same person. It's not a long-term type of you don't need to be there that many times for a
Yeah.
single type of thing. Yeah.
That's cool. And then how long is a session usually?
An hour, usually.
About an hour?
Yeah, the monthly subscription one's 45 minutes, but yeah, it's an hour session for
Well,
most.
that's really cool that you do the monthly subscription because yeah, things do pop up, right?
They do. I call it belief relief, and, the people who are in that love it. We start with an hour and a half session and kinda get a foundation of what we're gonna, where we're gonna start, and then it's just, and it takes away the pressure of, "Well, let's make sure we get it all in this session." We know there'll be another session, so you can kind of watch it and see what else pops up after each one. So, yeah, that works really well.
Yeah. What's something that you wish you knew back when you were in your IT days that you know now?
Oh gosh. There's so many aspects to that. I wish as a parent I had known this when my children were little about the impact of the subconscious. I had no idea of any of that. So that would have been helpful. It would have been helpful as a manager. I was in management for most of my career. For my, if HR had been willing, it would have been nice to know this and been able to approach it from here's another resource to help somebody that was struggling. But also for myself, right? I mean, I used to hate to speak to groups. I know,
Right.
right? Yeah, it's nice to have this tool. I use it with myself all the time. The imposter syndrome, any of the things that made you that stressed you out, right? I mean, it was corporate IT. There was a high stress level to it most of the time because there are deadlines and systems that crash and, it would have been really nice to be able to deal with all that because the stress is just caused because you don't believe you are gonna be able to handle whatever comes up, right?
Right. Mhm.
It's not the thing, it's your worry about yourself responding. So, yeah, it would have been a whole 'nother world if I'd known about this fact, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Let's dive into imposter syndrome
Mhm.
a bit. Like I hear this talked about so much in the business space. So tell me a little more about like how it comes up.
Well, from my own experience, I know I was always worried that it was gonna become very apparent that I was lacking in some basic knowledge that was necessary. Didn't know what that was, or I would have gone and learned it, right?
Yeah. I mean, but
There
there
was
was
some
more.
deficit, though I was sure there was something I didn't you don't know what you don't know, right? It was that fear of everybody discovering at the same time what that was and having it be very public, right?
Yeah, that's so funny.
And, you'll see this play out in, low level constant stress when you're on the job, where it's always that thing in the back playing in the background of, I don't know enough, I'm not smart enough, I didn't take enough classes, whatever, lacking somewhere. And it's interesting, sometimes you'll see it, particularly with entrepreneurs where they keep needing to go get another certification or, I'm not ready yet. I gotta, here's another program I can get in, and just collecting them, trying to make sure that they feel competent about what they're doing. And, yeah, I mean, there's a basic level of confidence that everybody needs for whatever they're doing. And after that, experience is probably the best teacher, So getting out there and just approaching it like it's a place to learn, with curiosity and that type of an approach. It's not what most people grow up with. If you had a family where, well, let's see what happens if you do this. Oh, cool, we learned something. That would be excellent, in all families. It's not typically how trial and error is
Right.
really. Yeah. That so, if you can reframe, any gaps in knowledge as an opportunity for learning or a lesson for next time, it would feel a lot better.
Absolutely. And I mean, you're talking about that, and I'm thinking, my background's in nursing. You don't know everything before they throw you out there. You barely know the basics, and then they're like, "All right, go out there and do some nursing." And you're like, "Okay,
No consequences there, right?
oh my goodness," right?
Yeah.
And doctoring, that's the same thing. They call it the practice of medicine for a reason? And so it's practice until you get good, but most doctors are, 40 years in before they're like, "Okay, I think I got this dialed in." Think I got a clue of what's happening here. And then, some new research comes out and they're like, oh, really? That's not even related whatsoever. But I think, if you think about that and like here we are, in business, it's interesting because my daughter, she works at Starbucks. And so she'll come home and she'll, tell me all about her day. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like it's just coffee. And I'm like, "It's just coffee, like, we're over here saving lives, and it's, like, life or death, but that's just coffee." The concepts and the struggles and the miscommunications and all the chaos happens very similarly,
Yes.
you know? And it doesn't really matter what type of business model you're in, there's at some point, it feels life or death
Yes.
in the mind.
The mind. Yep.
And that's really where you come in because it's really not that deep.
Yeah.
But subconsciously, it is. It's wired that way.
Yeah.
And so I love how you're breaking all this down to make it so simple and just like one tiny little tweak, and then everything flows correctly. And that obstacle that seemed like it was there is no longer there. Yeah.
It can be like magic, and it even shows up, with physical symptoms, right?
Yeah.
The body's like a instrument panel in my world, and if it's trying to get your attention, there's a reason for that. And you don't want the best way to get rid of the symptom is to find the root cause and change that as opposed to treat the symptom because
Yeah.
otherwise you just get more or worse symptoms. And the symptoms, I rarely see a symptom that's not connected to a subconscious belief.
Me too. Mhm. Yeah. So I'm in the health and wellness arena space as well. It's been for years. And even my own personal experience, I had this like bursa show up on my elbow, and I was like, what the heck is that? Like, that's weird. Went and had it drained, went and had it drained again. The stain just kept coming back. And then I was like, let me see what emotions are tied to this thing. I look it up. Me and my sister had an argument. It was 1 year to the day that that thing popped up. And it had to do with like family disagreement. And I was like, if this isn't like, oh my goodness, how crazy is this? Right. So then, I did my journal and processed those emotions. And literally the very next day, it completely went away.
Isn't it astounding? I expect it, I see it all, but it still is awe-inspiring, right? That connection between the mind and the
What
body.
is?
Yeah.
And I think about how often do we just go and look for symptom management and never get to the root of it, never process the emotions, and then wonder why we feel crummy.
Right.
Yeah. So you're helping process the emotions out of the body as well as remove those subconscious beliefs
Yeah,
that are hindering.
yeah.
Wow. That is profound.
It really is. It's how I first learned the process was seeing that, pain go away, and it's not the majority of what I work with, but
Yeah.
it comes up and you can do things about it. I think that's the big message.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. You don't have to live, in discomfort and wonder, like, with a bursa forever. It's like, "Oh my goodness, seriously? I'm not gonna have this thing forever." I'm like, "I can't even set my elbow down." This is awful, you know? So, but I imagine so many people go through stuff like that and never even think about the emotional component that's tied to whatever it is that we're going through in it. And like you said, majority of the time, like 99% of the time, it's something emotional. That's
It
trapped.
Yep, it really is.
Mhm.
And even if it's not, changing your perception of the situation can help healing, like I had to have my hip replaced.
Yeah.
And, I am sure if I'd had a different set of beliefs about how long it was gonna take to recover, how good I was gonna feel if I'm sure it would have been a totally different experience. I had a super quick healing experience, and, part of that was, what I expected, right?
Yeah.
But if people are going and you hear people say it all the time based on a stage of like, "Well, what do you expect when you get to be this age?" Or, "When you've done these things," or, whatever, it might be, and it's like, "Well, I expect to feel good."
Right?
And if I don't, I'm gonna try to find out why as opposed to, well, it's just something I'm gonna live with for the rest
Yeah,
of my
the
life.
acceptance.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I 100% agree. I'm like, "Well, do you see people that are, like, 80 and 90 that, like, still hit the gym? Yeah, it can be done, and then I'm gonna do it," you know? I totally agree, I love that. So tell me a little bit more about, like, how somebody if they wanted to get a hold of you and work with you, how would they do that? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Go to my website, which is alignedconsciousness.com, and on at the bottom of every page, there's a way to get to book something with me.
Gotcha, okay.
And so they can call. We have free 15-minute call you can schedule, and that way I can answer questions and see if it's something that they're looking for or not. I like to not everybody does a call, but if they've got questions or are wondering if it's the right thing for them, the call's a really good way to go through that. And on that same menu of things you can schedule would be a 60-minute session. And
Perfect.
yeah, so they can
Yeah.
schedule, there are a bunch of choices there, but that's usually the one of the first 2 things people do.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much. Judy, it has been a pleasure to have you on our podcast today. I absolutely enjoy how you are helping entrepreneurs overcome challenges in such a unique way. Thank you for what you do and helping, bring more value to the marketplace. I just absolutely love and adore you, and you are such a phenomenal human. So thank you so much for being on here, listeners. If you have not already, like, subscribe, share this message with somebody that you know. We appreciate you and really depend on you to help grow this channel. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you. I enjoyed the conversation.